let's go to our Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning Part 1. This is maybe not for us four, but this got to be one of the most anticipated movies of the year. Obviously, coming off of Fallout, which I think all of us agree is one of the best action movies the last 10 years, maybe 20 years, maybe ever.
Maybe ever.
Maybe ever. It's no John Wick Chapter 4, but yeah, you get what I'm saying.
Let's chill.
So yeah, we're back into the Mission Impossible franchise. Tom Cruise is doing ridiculous stunts. We were introduced to new characters. Let's start with just overall thoughts. We'll do what we usually do, just quick overall thoughts, and then we'll move into our spoilery section. I don't really have like specific plot points that I want to touch on when we get to spoilers. Obviously,
there's some big ones we got to discuss.
Yeah, there's one big one I think we'd love to touch on, but other than that, really, not enough. Tyler, sorry, Seth, I think you were the lowest on it, right? You gave it a 3.5.
Yeah, I think I was lowest on it.
All right, let's start with you.
Yeah, so obviously I kind of went through most of them this week. Well, the last 2 weeks, I'd only seen the first two previously. So I think it delivered on the expected fronts. I believe I said this in my review. I think just, set pieces are ambitious, that the cast is charismatic. I did bring in some new interesting characters into the franchise, and of course Tom Cruise. I often feel guilty for how much I love Tom Cruise because I just think he's just so good. I think Tom Cruise is just an incredible actor and just a charismatic performer who I can't wait to watch on screen. I think this film, we're going to spoilers obviously, I think this film made some interesting choices. And I also think, I can't remember if the cinematographer was the same. I also think this was a significant step down in camera work in this one as well. I think some of the set pieces to me were really bizarrely shot. There was like an overuse of Dutch angles, which kind of annoyed me, especially in that scene when they're kind of in the club. I won't say anything yet, but we'll go over that in the future. But I think some of the camera for me was kind of off, and it was erratic and kind of weird, which is not something I expected. And maybe that's because I set my expectations too high, having literally watched Fallout like 2 days previous. Going from that to this, and I think we will go on to rankings, but I also think the one before Fallout, Road Nation, is also incredible. So it's a case of maybe setting my expectations too high to let me down slightly. But I do think the film itself it was definitely a worthwhile watch because it delivers on its ambitious front. It's exhilarating, it's energetic. I definitely much preferred the first half than the second, and because I did think there was some interesting narrative points introduced, which I wasn't that much of a fan of. But again, we'll go over that in spoilers. But nothing really blew me away. Again, this isn't a spoiler because everyone knew this was going to be in the film, where he rides the bike off the cliff, whatever. So even like something like that, nothing really blew me away. Like I feel like in the previous films, at least one thing kind of has. But again, that might be down to my expectations. I just think the main thing in this was the overuse of exposition can be obtrusive at points, especially during the middle. And yeah, the camera work, I don't know, man. I'm actually going to I'll check when I've stopped speaking. I don't know if this was a different cinematographer or something, but it felt off to me. It felt generic, which isn't something I expect from Mission Impossible film because they're, they are really great action films, especially the previous ones. Okay, this was a different cinematographer. However, George, interestingly enough, this guy has done cinematography for John Wick 2.
Oh,
that is interesting. Yeah, so yeah,
I will say, I think stylistically, I think John Wick 2 is the weakest of the franchise.
I agree. Yeah. I completely agree. I think John Wick 2 for me is easily the weakest.
That's the only John Wick movie where I still think it looks cool and the action set pieces are cool, but you watch Parabellum or Chapter 4 and you're blown away by the neon aesthetic. Chapter 2 is the only one where I was like, this just feels like a very generic action movie in terms of how it's styled.
Yeah, no, I completely agree.
And also, you're coming off Fallout, the plane scene where him and Henry Cavill jump out, and the way that entire sequence is shot is just so fucking cool.
Yeah, I think this is the issue, isn't it? It's especially when you're in a franchise, when they are at such a height with Fallout, you will go into it with these
absurd expectations.
Yeah, absurd expectations, which is going to be inevitable. So potentially I am looking at this film too harshly. I do just think there was a step down in it. For me, anyway, and it's interesting enough, George. I'm just obviously I'll let you guys go to this, but the guy who did the cinematography for Fallout also did the cinematography for Alex Garland's films, Ex Machina, Annihilation, stuff like that.
Those are gorgeous films.
Well, there you go, especially Ex Machina.
Yeah.
Did you give Men?
Step down in that way. I give it a 3.5. I'm not going to say where it lands, and none of us should say where it lands.
Yes, we'll save that. We'll save that for the end of the episode.
But yeah, good film. I enjoyed it. Just was a slight letdown to what I've experienced from the previous two, I guess. Anyway.
Yeah, I feel like I don't know. Overall, from what I've seen from my mutuals, I feel like that's like the general consensus. Still very good movie, but it's definitely no Fallout. Tyler, 4 out of 5.
Yep,
4 out of 5.
Give it 4 out of 5. And I will say, like, I wouldn't say it's like completely the consensus, because I've seen a lot of people that like put this as like their top though. So like I've seen a lot of people that really loved it. So I liked it a lot. Haley Atwell is definitely my favorite addition to this series since Rebecca Ferguson, who's like the top for me. So she's like comes in at number 2, which is like, saying a lot, because this franchise consistently has added, A-list, B-list actors and actresses every single time. I will say this is the first time in the entire franchise where I felt like the cast got expanded so much, where I didn't feel like they all had the proper amount of time to breathe. So like Pom Clementif was also an addition who was great, but I feel like she didn't.
I really liked her.
I really liked her too. I didn't think she got nearly enough, like compared to like Haley Atwell. And then I feel like Simon Pegg, like some people who are like typically in the franchise, like really had to take a back seat in this one, just because we got so many new people added. So the cast definitely expanded a ton. I really liked all the new additions. I just think it spread a little thin. The action set pieces were crazy. I feel like this movie's kind of a two-parter in itself, in terms of the first half is a lot of exposition, a lot of background spy work, and the second half is pretty much nonstop action, because that bike jump scene really just kicks off the beginning of like a 30-minute action sequence with like the train chase and stuff. I think just going into it, so a lot of people I saw before I even saw the movie were like saying, oh, the exposition can be annoying, there's too much of it, like explain the AIs a lot. So I think just going into it, I already was expecting to see a lot of it. So then when I actually watched the movie, I was just like, that wasn't that bad. I didn't think they were really spoon feeding it too horribly. But again, I think I was just set up for it being way worse than it actually ended up being, or being way too much than it actually ended up being. I thought the hand-to-hand combat, even though I love the Henry Cavill fight in Fallout, I think the hand-to-hand combat in this was really, really good. I thought the musical score was super good. I can agree with some issues with the cinematography, but I thought the music was amazing in this. I thought just the final act was completely breathtaking. But yeah, I think Tom Cruise is the greatest action star to ever live. He was incredible in this. My favorite thing about him by far is that he just learns new stuff for every movie, no matter what. In this movie, he clearly, when Fallout came out, he clearly went like, he's like, I have to decompress. I'm on set for Top Gun Maverick. I'm going to watch some YouTube videos, chill out. He saw some dudes doing sleight of hand magic on his YouTube feed, and he's like, that's it. That's the skill I'm mastering for Dead Reckoning Part 1. I am now going to learn magic in my free time. And just unnecessarily, but it was so unnecessary every time in the movie, but I loved it every time. I didn't care. Where he's just like flicking stuff back and forth with his hands. And like, I'm like, it's just so funny, because like stuff like the movie, the Now You See Me movies, like obviously I'll do all that with CGI, but Tom Cruise trained in his trailer on set of Top Gun Maverick, just like freaking Glenn Powell and Miles Teller banging on his door, like, dude, come on, we got to go fly some jets. He's like, I almost got this like 52 card shuffle, like master guys, just like, hold on. But yeah, he's incredible. I really enjoyed this movie. I 4-star, really, really liked it. I will say, like, I like Across the Spider-Verse more than this movie for sure, but this definitely felt more complete as a one-parter than Across the Spider-Verse, because I feel you could watch this. Yeah. Like, if this is your favorite Mission Impossible movie, which it is for a lot of people, and then say when the franchise is all said and done, you can definitely go back and watch this without like immediately being like, okay, I need to jump into part 2 now. Like, you can watch this as a complete narrative and feel like you were satisfied. Whereas Across the Spider-Verse, you can watch on its own, but I feel like immediately you'd be like, okay, now I need to see Beyond the Spider-Verse to finish this off.
I think Tom Cruise actually said, or at least I saw in an interview where he said that because it is a one-parter, he doesn't want to leave people with too much anticipation for the next film, and wants a good closed ending where they can watch it as just a one film rather than just thinking about the next one.
I was going to say I prefer Across the Spider-Verse kind of to this, like the ending to this. That makes me feel more like it's a part 1, part 2 versus this, where it feels like it's just another like movie they leave a couple things open-ended, but this kind of feels more like a movie that they just slapped on a part 1 title to, in my opinion.
I think it's just because it's going to be the same villain in the part 2. It's still going to be the AI.
Yeah,
plot
I think the use of part 1, part 2 kind of gets thrown around a lot as like, hey, they're just going to be like the same general plot, so we're going to make a part 1, part 2. And then to me, it feels like Across the Spider-Verse, even though I guess it didn't use the part 1, part 2. That to me feels more like what I would think like a part 1 would feel like, which it originally was. But maybe they both flipped on how they should have used it. Is it my turn for a review? I had to.
Let's keep it in order of stars, because I think you gave it 4.5.
I missed a couple things, so sorry about that.
No, it's fine. I'm pretty much like aligned with Tyler at my 4 out of 5 star rating. I think this movie has like some of the best like Mission Impossible moments. Like I think the entire like club sequence to the bridge fight sequence it was captivating at that point in the movie. I was like, if like this movie continues with this type of style choices and like these just really engaging action sequences, like it might be my highest ranked Mission Impossible movie. And then even like the entire final train sequence from the point Tom Cruise jumps off that cliff of the motorcycle and then to the end of the movie. I just thought that entire set piece was just fucking mesmerizing. Narratively, I think this is one of the weaker Mission Impossible movies. This isn't really like spoilers. It's like the plot of the movie, but like, I don't know. It felt very like boring and bland to me. Like, oh, this key unlocks what? Let's get this key, blah, blah, blah. Like they didn't care too much about the story because they were obviously focusing significantly more on like the action set pieces and like giving us like a true movie theater experience, which granted all Mission Impossible movies have, but I don't know. In Fallout, I thought that was the strongest Mission Impossible movie narratively, and I think it works really well just because of like how locked in I was to the characters. Like a lot of the new characters just kind of felt there. Especially like Shea Wiggum and Greg Tarzan Davis as like the 2 new like FBI agents or whatever they played. But yeah, I think as a spectacle, it's a Mission Impossible movie, so we kind of know exactly what we're getting into, and I think it holds up that end of the bargain. Like I said, it's got some of like the best moments in Mission Impossible movies in my humble opinion. But narratively speaking, I think this is one of the weaker Mission Impossible movies, so it makes my ranking very difficult to know. But yeah, I still thoroughly enjoyed it. I'm still really excited for part 2. I think they gave us all the right ingredients to make sure that I am still excited for part 2 after this movie. So yeah, I landed at a 4 out of 5. You'll see, stick around to the end of our episode. That's when we will give our rankings, but you'll see where it kind of stacks up against the remainder of the Mission Impossible movies. Cam, you were the highest of all of us. You gave it a 4.5 out of 5 stars. Give us your thoughts. You're on mute.
Yeah, I am. Very epic. I gave this an 88 out of 100. Really enjoyed it. Really loved it. My biggest knock on the movie is couldn't give less of a fuck about Shea Wiggum or Greg Tarzan Davis characters. They just threw them in to add them into the chase, and I did not.
I thought Shea Wiggum was hilarious, though.
Oh, he was pretty funny.
Yeah, I thought he had some funny fucking moments.
Yeah, you're not wrong about that. Just like every scene though that he was in, it just felt so unnecessary, and that also equates to this being a 2 hour and 46-minute movie, and then me going and seeing it at about 9:45, 10 o'clock. So I'm not getting home till 1 a.m. Entire time. Every scene, like towards like after the first hour, every scene I'm like, all right, I don't care. Get this guy off my screen. And you would think that'd make me hold this movie lower. But the fact that like who goes to bed at normally like 9 a.m. or 9 p.m. on weekdays, like I was just locked into this movie the entire time because the action was so awesome. And just fucking Tom Cruise, I swear to God, is not a person. He's an alien and he's an AI, and he seems like this weirdo off screen. It's so goddamn good in these movies. Like I swear he is just a person trying to convince every single person on this earth that he's not weird, and he is. He's mega weird. But
he is super weird.
But he is so good in these movies. Like he's so weird, but he can act his ass off in these. Haley Atwell, one of the best additions to this franchise we've ever gotten. I absolutely adored her. I can't believe it took me this long to figure out I was absolutely in love with her. But yeah, she was so good in this. I like Vanessa Kirby's character. I think she was fine in here. Rebecca Ferguson, I think like Alex Coleman loves her. I think she's fine in this. And I enjoyed her again. So Tyler, make note of time so I can ask this question. Did we know the AI was the villain, or was that a spoiler?
No, I think that was pretty apparent.
Yeah.
Okay, so this movie uses AI as a villain, and I think this is the least dumb way to use AI. I think AI is a fairly stupid villain for the most part. This was a good use of it, I think, as like just a predictive model. That's okay. So something broke. Okay, great. But just as a predictive model that like a human is using. Here you go. A human is using just to like be like a better villain. I liked that, I enjoyed that, where the AI is still the villain, but it's always a human that's interacting with it, and they're like using this plot to move it along. I enjoyed that a lot.
I don't know. Do we want to get the spoilers? Are we wrapped up with like just
that's my talk? Oh, before spoilers, real quick, I put this TV in, and I was hoping like I could always like. Oh, I also put that dartboard in, but I put this TV in, and I was hoping in the background I could always have like the movie poster. Clearly, that is unfortunately not the case because it's too high. So that's kind of a bummer to see. I never like saw it on screen, but yeah.
Tragic. Next time. All right, let's jump into spoilers. So as usual, if you have not seen Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1, skip ahead, I'd say 20, maybe 25 minutes. We'll have timestamps below as per usual, but that is your fair spoiler warning. Please leave because I'm about to drop a massive spoiler. 3, 2, 1. Obviously, we had the death of Ilsa, Rebecca Ferguson's character. Tyler and I were talking after the movie. I don't buy it. I don't buy that she's dead.
All right. So my friend, so not necessarily that I don't buy it, but my friend texted me like right after, and he was pissed it happened. He felt like it was like a mega disservice to her character. I didn't really care for it, and he felt like it didn't really like matter in the plot, which I think it did. Clearly, but it more so meant that like Haley Atwell's character survives, and that was kind of what the plot mattered. But I will say I don't like that 20 minutes before this, they faked her death.
Yeah.
And then brought her back and then killed her. So that just like kind of, I didn't really care for that. Like, I feel like you could have just killed her the first time if you're going to kill her 45 minutes later,
There have also just been so many instances in like the Mission Impossible franchise.
I don't think that's true. I don't think
just where someone takes off a face and like they're not really dead.
That's
I like the mask stuff though.
Oh, I love the mask.
I feel that has it not been overused like crazy?
Well, no, I really like it.
Like that's their thing.
That's the thing.
Like that's like Mission Impossible's thing is
the
mask. But I will say I don't think this is not a franchise that has an on-screen death and then fakes it for like this is not a Fast X where Gal Gadot falls off a plane and then is brought back 3 movies later. Like I don't think they're going to bring her back. I'm on the side. I don't think.
Tyler also brought up a good point that like Rebecca Ferguson is now being cast in like so many big IPs like Dune that maybe it was her time to like let go of Mission Impossible, and then obviously the introduction of Haley Atwell's character is like there's your replacement.
Passing along something.
Yeah.
I think if it wasn't, I'm actually on Cam's side. I don't think they'll bring it back. I don't think this sort of franchise to do that. But I do think the death itself was, and this is kind of what I was leading to earlier when I said I didn't like the narrative one. I think it was very anticlimactic, to be honest. I think the way they kind of pulled her out, and especially what Cam said, where they faked the death and then brought her back, or not brought her back, but or revealed she was alive, I guess, which was kind of obvious anyway, and then kind of killed her off an hour later or whatever. I think it was, I do actually think it was a disservice to a character because I don't, Cam just thinks she was fine. I actually really, really like Rebecca Ferguson in these films, or Rogue Nation especially. I think she's great. And I don't know, man. It's kind of a weird one. I didn't like the idea. I definitely know why they've done it. Because again, like George said, it is like the passing of the torch almost to the side character, I guess, with Haley Atwell's character, who, by the way, I also have fell in love with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, who hasn't?
Well, I don't know, man. This just came out of nowhere for me. I was like, I
don't know. I don't know if this is a hot
right.
take, but I already think Haley Atwell and Tom Cruise had like better overall chemistry than Tom Cruise and Rebecca Ferguson ever
so.
did.
I think that was the best on screen.
Rebecca Ferguson as an actor, so like that's pretty much what it is.
Yeah, I guess.
I just never loved Rebecca Ferguson's character, and I love Rogue Nation. Like I absolutely adore it.
Don't give away.
I kind of do like her character because her character has always just like hovered this fine line of like, is she a good guy? Is she a bad guy? Is she here for personal gain? Or she's like morally conflicted, which I like because obviously she's like.
It's the same as Haley Atwell, though, I guess, isn't it?
Yeah, they're both like the antithesis of like Ethan Hunt. Like Ethan Hunt is there as just like he's gonna do whatever he thinks is like good for the situation, where like Rebecca Ferguson's character and Haley Atwell character are always just thinking about themselves, but they know morally they should be more like Ethan. So I don't know. I've always loved that character of also just being like the opposite of Ethan Hunt.
Yeah. When it happened, it clearly was the like big death, but when it happened, I was just like, all right, cool.
I don't know. Everyone.
I
liked her.
Yeah,
I thought it was so like. Epic,
and I think that's probably why you like didn't like this movie. I mean, 3.5 versus 4.5, you were never going to get there. But like maybe that's what the difference between a 3.5 and a 4 is for you. Whereas me, who I didn't like necessarily need the death, but if the death really impacted you, maybe it could have been the 4. You know,
I don't think you were here when I said my review. One of my biggest issues was the camera work a lot of the time.
I heard that, the Dutch angles, and I agree with you completely.
Kind of annoys me.
But I think it's because I just learned what a Dutch angle was like 2 days ago. Like,
you watch Marvel all the time. Like
that's why I don't need to worry about camera angles, because if I become this director, I'm going to start hating movies I love. I never need to know about any camera work, but I learned about that like 2 days ago from Twitter, or not 2 days ago, but 2 days before seeing this movie, and I was like, man, I hate that I just learned about this.
You'll look for it now. I guarantee you'll look for it.
Same thing with split diopter. Once people tell you what
I learned about that on Twitter the other day. Yeah.
I love a split.
This is the first.
I do know what you mean, Cam. I think it would be if Rebecca Ferguson's character had been, because I really like her, if she'd been dealt with a little bit, I guess. What I would have preferred her to go out if she had to die. I think I would have probably raised the movie a little higher, because I do like Rebecca Ferguson. Sorry, I'm just watching Cam's camera right now.
Cam's camera falling right now.
Sorry, Sally.
I was just gonna say one of the explanations for the camera work is this is the first movie of the entire franchise that's digital. The rest were all film. So yeah. So that
which I really liked at the start. It was very Brian De Palma, like Mission Impossible 1. You know, for that first hour, especially that scene. The smoke where he goes in and gasses all of them, and then he's speaking to, I can't remember what his name is, but I really liked it there. I just think it kind of wore on. I ended up not liking it the further it went on, if that makes sense, because of some of the sequences. But I will say, George, what was the sequence you said? The bridge sequence and the sequence before, you know, where he's fighting.
The whole sequence leading up to Ilsa's death. Like, I thought that was like awesome. Like Ethan running through like running through the streets, being guided by like the wrong AI.
Like the fight inside the alleyway or whatever.
Yeah, the fight inside the alleyway while Rebecca Ferguson's character is in the fight on the bridge. Like, I thought that was like really cool.
I didn't love the club scene which was just before that, but I really liked the bridge and the alleyway fight sequence. I think the alleyway fight sequence is actually really good. I really enjoyed that bit.
I don't know. I think I did myself a disservice not having seen Mission Impossible earlier, because now you guys know how highly I hold John Wick. I think stylistically, they're the best action movies. I think in terms of storytelling, they're the best action movies. I think in terms of fight choreography and hand-to-hand combat, they're the best action movies. So I agree. Cam's shaking his head.
I don't know.
It's just combat. Hand-to-hand combat, maybe, that's probably fair. But I think Fallout is so much higher, and maybe not so much higher, but I think Fallout is leaps and bounds better than
I disagree.
John Wick 4.
I disagree, but no. The thing I'm getting at is like, I mean, okay, regardless, like the John Wick movies are stylistically.
Does he have some AI camera that's moving on? No, it's just like drifts that way.
It's like one of those cameras that you have, Tyler, that follows you.
Is that
really?
really?
My camera, like it moves with me, and so I'm trying to like get my son to stop holding sharp objects. He's picking up sharp objects, and I'm trying to grab them from him, and it's like just like pan over.
But yeah, like
it's a one shot.
As cool as like the John Wick, as cool as the Mission Impossible movies are, I think I did myself a massive disservice because like I hold John Wick so highly, it's unbelievable. But yeah, what other massive like plot points or like spoiler things do we want to talk about?
Sorry if anyone else had anything.
Go for it, sir.
Not a spoiler at all, but maybe it's because I wasn't in the movie world as much when like Fallout came out. Like I loved movies, obviously, but I wasn't like on Twitter every day trying to tweet the latest movie news, you know. But they just used that motorcycle jump so much prior to this movie, where the Halo jump from Fallout or the plane, like riding on the plane wouldn't have been something I was involved in, because what was that, like 2014 or something, or way back before I would have been like super into movie Twitter. But they just used it so much, and I feel like behind the scenes looks at something like that should not come out before the movie. Like it should come out
like the platform and stuff.
The trailer, see it. Exactly. The trailer is awesome. Like you see it, jumps off, and then the trailer cuts. Awesome. You don't need behind the scenes. Cool. Yeah, the behind the scenes I feel like should come out now. Like this movie came out on a Monday. It should come out on the Saturday after the movie comes out. You're trying to build. You've gotten the hype of the people who are clearly gonna go see this thing, but it's I'm trying to think, like you're trying to build more hype for people who haven't seen it, I guess. And so like you're like, look at this
big moment, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And that was a little frustrating for me.
Yeah, I agree.
Because like I wanted to be there and be like, holy shit, he just jumped a bike off a mountain. But it was cool, but not the coolest thing I've ever seen.
It was cool, but it wasn't like in every Mission Impossible film. I said this like earlier. We've had something that was like breathtaking. And this would have been breathtaking if it wasn't that I saw a million behind the scenes shots and everything beforehand. So yeah, I definitely agree with Cam. I think it could have been done a lot better, I guess.
One thing, and I don't know if maybe this is me, maybe like my time perception is off, but like the entire sequence leading up to that jump, I felt like Ethan Hunt wasn't in the movie.
What led up to the jump?
While he was on his motorcycle driving and Simon Pegg's character is like telling him where to go, we were focused on the train so much, and there was a point where I was like, damn, I was like, Ethan Hunt is really taking a back seat for like this good half hour right now, while everything on the train like starts to unfold for him to get there.
I agree with that, but I kind of liked it.
No, I didn't mind it. It just like in the moment, it like caught me very off guard. Like we just kept cutting back to him very briefly, trying to figure out where to go, and then we got back to the train for like 10 minutes straight without Ethan Hunt, and I was like, it was more interesting to me because like I'm surprised Tom Cruise was okay with that.
Yeah, no, I felt the same way though too, because I remember, because like basically it starts like he grabs the bike and you're like, oh shit, here we go, like we all know where this is going, but it took way longer to get there than I initially thought, because like you said, it cut back and forth so much. But not necessarily that I didn't like that or anything, but it was interesting for sure. But I don't know, the big thing for me I just really like is Dead Reckoning Part 1 took risks. You know, they killed off characters. Will they stay that way? We'll see. You know, Jeremy Renner wasn't killed off, but it's been 2 movies since he came back, and based on his injury, I doubt they'll ever come back. So this franchise has shown in the past they're willing to take a big name actor and just let them kind of go by the wayside in their franchise. Whereas, you know, like the Fast franchise, even after Paul Walker's death, like still throws him into some, like I think even in the Fast X, I think you might have saw a little bit of him or something, just a glimpse, like a flashback, and then like John Wick, like obviously like. It was like a flashback. It wasn't like a new.
It was a flashback.
I'm pretty sure for sure he's in it, but so like, whereas like John Wick, you know, like obviously everyone knows like spoilers for John Wick 4. Skip forward 15 seconds if you still haven't seen that. All right, you've been warned. Obviously, he dies at the end of that. I'll be very upset if they make a John Wick 5 with him back in it, because that's just like, for me, like a franchise that's not taking risks. And I appreciate that they took risks here because like Rebecca Ferguson, Cam, I know you aren't super high on her, but like she's very beloved in these franchises. So like killing her off is definitely a bold play by them.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
So we'll see if she stays that way. I feel like since they did the fake out and then showed her death and then had such a long like view of her, I feel like to me that's going to be something that killed off. And like I said, with how Jeremy Renner's been not killed off, but effectively killed off for 2 movies and hasn't come back because obviously like they were filming this before like his injury would have happened. So like that wasn't the reason he wasn't in this. So I feel like they're willing to let things die, especially because these franchises are so popular that they're able to just always get new people in it. Whereas like, John Wick, like, yeah, sure, it has like Donnie Yen and stuff like that, but they don't have like just new A-listers every John Wick movie. Whereas Mission Impossible, I feel like Tom Cruise can just take like the Scientology heads and be like, these 3 people contact their agents and get them in the next movie. I'm not taking no for an answer. And then boom, Haley Atwell is now the lead girl of the franchise. So I don't know. I really enjoyed this. I definitely didn't love it as much as the other ones, but we'll get into the rankings later. In terms of the John Wick 4 or John Wick versus this conversation, for me, it's just like John Wick, the movie just got a little bland for me because like they expand the lore every time, but like the movies are all the same. It's all just like Keanu Reeves, running through and kind of just having unlimited plot armor, which this is the same. This is unlimited plot armor for Ethan Hunt. But he does like it's a different kind of thing. Like John Wick survives by like taking falls and getting shot a million times, which for me personally, like the way I've watched film, like for me that takes me out of it. Whereas Ethan Hunt survives by doing a crazy stunt, where at least they like do like a different enough stunt each time, where I'm like, that's super cool. But Ethan Hunt's never like eating, 18 people shooting him at once, like John Wick. But both are great franchises. I think they're very different franchises. It makes sense why people are going to compare them. But yeah, for me, I definitely like it. At this point, it's probably not that close. I definitely prefer Mission Impossible more than the John Wick franchise. But yeah, so that's really all I have to say about the movie.
I mean,
George,
yeah.
I'll give you some niceness. I preferred John Wick 4 over Dead Reckoning Part 1. So there's that.
I would hope so.
Yeah. There's that.
I think.
Oh, stop, Kev. Stop it.
Dead Reckoning Part 1 is higher for me for sure than John Wick 4.
I have John Wick 4 over Dead Reckoning by 1 point, and I think that will change it.
No.
Don't
really?
Don't do that.
Yeah,
I think John Wick 4 is like
after watching this versus after watching John Wick 4, I was definitely more like amped after watching this. And I think a lot of that is, you know what John Wick 4 needs? Hi, bud. I know. John Wick 4 needs a cool theme. Like John Wick does not have a cool theme, whereas this, every time it comes on, it's like Creed. It's like Creed playing the Rocky theme every time. It's like what did I say?
Indiana Jones.
Oh, Indiana Jones playing the Indiana.
Whereas I disagree with you, but I agree with you on this time.
But
I agree with you now.
Just play the hits, and every time they play it just bangs, and it's just absolutely awesome. Play the hits. I will say, Tyler, to your point of like they take risk. I feel like this is the only franchise ever in history that as they get more and more movies, they take themselves more and more serious. Like you're exactly right. This is the only franchise I would say, like, I don't think there's any chance Rebecca Ferguson gets brought back. Whereas if this shit were like Transformers, Marvel, Fast X, especially, like, they're bringing that person back in 2 movies when they need more money. Like, it's just, to me, this is the only franchise that's still like really trying to take itself seriously. And I'm not saying you're good. You go.
I was just saying, can I just ask Tara? You'll know how well do these films usually do? I don't really know much about.
That's perfect segue, Seth. I was just about to talk about that. These movies aren't major box office players. The peak is Fallout at about 700 million. Then Mission Impossible 2 is in second place, like 500 million. Everything under that's like 400 million total worldwide. So this movie's COVID delays made it, the production budget alone, 290 million. It is underperforming at the box office right now. So it's probably going to be like a barely break even, which if you saw shout out my TikTok, if you saw my box office breakdown with how crazy budgets are and marketing budgets and stuff, like John Wick 4 barely broke even. But like you look at the box office, you're like, oh my God, it made so much money. That's also a movie that barely broke even. This movie's probably going to barely break even. They've never been crazy box office stuff. So like everyone who was like, oh, this has a chance to cross $1 billion was just lost and misguided, because never, like, these have always been like, and I can't remember who it is. I think Doug might always be like the one who's always saying this, but these have always been like a more niche franchise than like every other franchise. Like these have never been like the biggest, blockbuster that comes out. So probably going to barely break even, might even be a loser we'll end up seeing. But a lot of it was just with the COVID delays. And yeah, so like there's like one of the fun facts on IMDb is like they started filming, this movie was initially filmed in Venice, but then that got shut down to COVID. So they just like, we're like, screw it, we don't need Venice, we'll just move to Rome, we'll film it there instead. Then that got shut down. And then it said Tom Cruise personally paid for a $500,000 cruise ship for the cast and crew to isolate. Like if any of them got COVID, he would just throw them on that cruise ship and be like, all right, go there until the 2 weeks is up and then come back. And he just had that floating on the coast of Italy, just like the cruise COVID ship. But yeah, so it's crazy that this came out 27 years after the original movie. That's just, at this point, like, I get it, like, you can kind of say it like a hot take, but it's just simply not. Like, Tom Cruise is like the greatest action star ever. I can't believe like people were like saying like Keanu Reeves. Like, I like Keanu Reeves a lot, but it's 27 years, and it's not like this was the beginning. 1996 was like what, 10 years after the original Top Gun. So this dude's like been like 40 years plus of like just crazy action sequences.
Doing
this
shit.
is just a wild dude, and I love that he's a magician now. It's so funny. I also love that the opening credits didn't come on. They always do this great. The opening credits, I always love Mission Impossible. They always hit so late in the movie, and it's just a banger.
Our episode on YouTube this week is going to have so many comments. Tyler, stop glazing the shit out of Tom Cruise.
Dude, some men put their lives in the line, and we gotta respect them. So
I will say that even though I knew that motorcycle jump sequence was coming, like my heart still my stomach still dropped.
They do a good thing where they like stop all the sound and all the
they stop the sound and like the camera work I think is sick because like they follow him from behind. And so
and then
like
GoPro shot.
Yeah, so you feel like you're doing. It's the same thing with the Halo leap, where like the camera is literally right below Tom, so like you're like right there with him, and like you said, Seth, like they cut the sound. All you hear is the wind blowing. They do a really good job at like truly making you feel like you are in that position. And even though I knew that, like obviously everyone knew that was coming, we got so much footage of it beforehand. My stomach still dropped, and that is how good like some of these action sequences or stunts are.
What's the guy's name again? Is it
Christopher McQuarrie?
Christopher McQuarrie.
Yeah, I mean, you've got to think now. He did obviously Rogue Nation, he did Fallout, and he's done this. You've got to think he's one of the best people at creating these action set pieces and these stunt set pieces in film in general right now. It is his eye for creating these shots is really, really, really brilliant. And
you know what I wonder though, like for the Halo jump or this motorcycle sequence or any of these other like massive stunts that these Mission Impossible movies have done, do you think those are like, do you think Tom Cruise goes to the filmmaker with this idea and says incorporate this in your movie somehow, or do you think the filmmaker brings it to Tom Cruise and is like, are you comfortable with this?
I think Tom Cruise will have a point where he is such a collaboration with the director at this point, whereas it'll be a collaborative talk between them. He'll suggest an idea, the director will suggest an idea, and Tom Cruise will always be open to doing stuff. And because he is the face of this franchise, he doesn't make them, but he's the face, and they will be a collaborative project, a lot of them anyway. That's
like I'm just thinking like Christopher McQuarrie, like writing this script, giving it to Tom. Being like, bro, there's one scene where I'm gonna need you to like jump this motorcycle off a cliff and parachute. Like that one had to be Tom's idea.
I think it's Tom Cruise like suggesting that.
But like Seth said, I think it's super collaborative. Like because Christopher McQuarrie, they've collaborated forever. Like because he's written like almost every Tom Cruise. Like he wrote Valkyrie, Jack Reacher, Edge of Tomorrow, The Mummy. The last two Mission Impossible, he wrote Top Gun Maverick. So they've been working together for coming up on 15 years. So I'm sure it's a very collaborative effort. I'm sure there's like moments. I'm sure like he probably has an idea of what the screenplay is going to be. And it's like clearly like, we have the train sequence, we have like a motorcycle sequence. Then they kind of from there, they're like, here's the big action set pieces. What do we want to do? Practically, like have you jump a cliff and then what do we want to do, CGI or something like the train sequence. And I feel like, Tom Cruise kind of picks and chooses from there what he's comfortable with.
Yeah. I think this is where we're giving Tom Cruise a little too much credit of him trying to convince us he's a normal person. I don't think he's coming up with these stunts. I think he just is a madman who's accepting whatever he's given.
No, I think Tom Cruise has enough enthusiasm.
The mission, should he choose to accept it. I don't think he's coming up with these stunts. He's a smart guy, but I think it takes a lot more than just like Tom Cruise being like, I want to jump a bike off a mountain. Like I don't even think it's Christopher McQuarrie, really. I think they probably have some sort of stunt coordinator who's like just scouting locations and trying to figure out what.
Is that actually such a smart thing to bring up? I can't imagine him.
Well, I'm just saying, I think we're giving him too much credit.
I agree
on this one.
I can't imagine Tom Cruise not having the ability to say, I want to jump off a cliff with a motorbike. Do you know what I mean? It's not great. There'll be coordinators. I just think he'll help with the initial idea of what stunt to achieve. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I think Top Gun Maverick wouldn't be a movie without Tom Cruise, simply because I feel like he was just like, let's do this. Let's run this back. I feel like he probably was the one who set that idea in motion. Personally, that's just my thoughts. But yeah.
It's potentially,
good movie.
He's there.
Fun.
Real quick before we move on, what's your favorite stunt from this franchise? What's the best Tom?
You know what I'm gonna say.
Stunt?
I think the Halo leap.
You know what I'm gonna say.
I think that is the coolest look. I don't know if you were here when we were talking about this, Cam, but like everything in that sequence, from the camera work to like the red lighting to like the way the camera like makes you feel like you're the third person there with Tom and Henry, and then Henry dips. And then you're following Tom, and then like you're underneath Tom. You know?
I wish we would have a more diverse list, but I think the Halo jump.
That's just it's the coolest. Yeah, and then even like everything getting down to the building, like Henry Cavill's character obviously passes out. Tom's doing his thing, trying to like save him. That whole sequence is.
I think it's there when like Tom limps off. When Tom like lands and then limps off. Right. That's because he like actually broke his leg or broke his ankle.
No, that's the scene where he like ran. No, different scene. I just watched this movie 2 days ago.
Oh,
I think it's in Rogue Nation. He's like running and jumping to another building, and like. You see his leg like hit, and he still runs off.
Is it not in Fallout?
Maybe it's Fallout or Rogue Nation. It's one of the two, but that's not the Halo leap sequence. I know.
Produces all these films, doesn't he? He does, doesn't he?
After like 3, I think. Yeah.
I thought he did all of them.
Maybe I don't think he had enough money for that. To be honest, he wasn't like that big of a name.
What Seth, is yours the Halo jump also your favorite stunt?
To be honest, yeah, and it's a basic answer, but it's so fucking good, man. Yeah, I probably say Halo.
Honestly, for me, it might be the Burj Khalifa climb, just because like that's like the only stunt in the franchise where I'm like, how did they do this? Like simply because like obviously all of them are crazy, but like that one I'm like, this is where Scientology comes into play, because I don't think anyone, even the biggest star in the world, is able to go to the Middle East and say I'm climbing the Burj Khalifa. I think that's where he had to have the puppeteers pull some strings, because like. I don't know, man. That just seems.
It is Tom Cruise. To be fair,
it is crazy, and I know, I know money. I know, like money talks and everything, and you can do anything with money. But it is crazy, like how much shit they've done for this. Like they shut down. I think it was like wherever they were in Italy in Fallout. They basically shut down that entire like city for 3 days just to film this thing. It is crazy that they're just like able to do that kind of thing.
Just to clarify, Tom Cruise was a producer on every single Mission Impossible, even the first and the second one. Yeah. Interesting.
Very interesting. All right. Anything else you want to touch on for Dead Reckoning Part 1? That pretty much wraps it up here. Seth, 3.5 out of 5. Myself and Tyler, 4 out of 5. Cam, 4.5 out of 5, and he agrees John Wick Chapter 4 is better.